Hello everybody. Welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all doing grand and that you're all having a great day. Don't forget to leave a like. It is a free and easy way to support the channel. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Yeah, the cryptocurrency market is continuing to experience what we call the beginning rumblings of the bull market. I'm not really sure what sentence is supposed to go there. For those of you not looking at the screen, it says Bitcoin demand outpaces supply. Like what? Like as if that hasn't always been some kind of a thing. The current news that we're receiving, have been seeing, has been in the background and hasn't been as popular, is that more and more people every single day are creating Bitcoin addresses, creating new Bitcoin wallets, buying Bitcoin. These smaller wallets, those that tend to, and I say this lightly, only have around 100,000 Satoshis. That would be, let's see, 1, around $100 or so worth of Bitcoin. These are continuing to accumulate a little bit more as well, which is always rather for me, in my vantage point, it's a good sign because Bitcoin is made for the people. The demand has always, or at least the last couple of years, outpaced supply, especially as the halving continuously happens every 4 years. This is creating and has created a situation where I think a lot of people are now, I told you this would happen at the beginning of the year, and I told you even more so, that this would take place around summertime, as far as people tend to not really react until like they have to actually react. So things are so far out of their reach that they then come to the conclusion that if they don't do something that they're going to have a bad time financially and or otherwise. Upon hearing that Bitcoin continues to rise in price, that institutions are buying, if you've been missing any of the last couple of videos, we've heard a lot about apparently other countries who are already right now buying up huge amounts of Bitcoin in an effort to try and front run the United States from potentially beginning to start buying sometime in 2025. The amount of Bitcoin that already comes out of the machine is so little comparative to the amount that we've seen even collected by ETF issuers. I think a lot of people have a relatively, forgive me, like short attention span on the idea of, what's the word? Remember when we first started hearing that the Bitcoin ETFs had launched, and within the first week or two, we were hearing that on a daily basis, this was before the halving. Before the halving, I believe 950 Bitcoin were made per day. No, 900 Bitcoin. And then that got cut in half to 450 as the halving actually happened. Before the halving even actually took place, we had, I think the ETF issuers were buying up 1 to 3 days worth of the Bitcoin mined in a single day. So every day they were doing around 3x what was actually even coming out of the machine. And that was like a big revelation for a lot of people because people were like, oh my gosh, how are they doing that? And then we had news stories where I was like, hey, remember also that all of the Bitcoin that gets mined is not hitting cryptocurrency exchanges. The people who are mining it are not mining it for you. They're mining it for themselves to become richer. So therefore, what actually is hitting crypto exchanges is a fragment of what's actually being mined, and any new supply that you do see hitting crypto exchanges is coming from retail investors not understanding what's happening, not wanting to pay attention, not wanting to invest, not wanting to hold on, having no long-term view of money in any sort of way, so they were the ones who were selling. That then quickly shifted to these ETF issuers. I believe at one point they were collecting or absorbing, I think around 10 times the amount of Bitcoin that was created per day. And that quickly moved up to, I think our craziest day from what I can remember was an 18x of the amount that was made per day. So that was already completely outpacing the supply. But it was really weird because unless people hear it directly from the SEC, Coinbase, BlackRock, or otherwise, like, it means absolutely nothing to them. Like, no one is actually gauging how completely insane that this is. Since all of that's taken place, the amount of demand for Bitcoin has not slowed down. People assume because prices aren't moving up where they think they should be, that people have kind of stopped buying. Remember all the other times when we were going over the news articles and I was showing you some of the things inside the articles, and it would say Bitcoin fell down to 38,000. Despite this, it looks like people are still buying. You don't buy despite the price going down, you buy because the price has gone down. You accumulate at a lower level. Actually, you should be accumulating at any given level. But big whales tend to accumulate, especially when prices have made any kind of a dip. This is why we always heard that MicroStrategy bought $2 billion worth of Bitcoin. When did they buy? It wasn't at the all-time high. They bought when they saw that dip. Retail wasn't paying attention, and they gobbled up a huge amount of coins. It is my speculation at this point that we probably have a couple more years until there is actually no Bitcoin left. As I've said before on the other channel, I'm still slightly sick. I'm sure you can hear it. It's just my nose is stuffed at this point, but everything else seems to be a little bit better. I'm giving it a couple of years at this point until there's actually no Bitcoin left. It's weird because I don't want to feel vindicated. I don't want to have an I told you so kind of moment. It's more of I find it really weird when people are skeptical about like basic things that I say. Like, imagine me waking up and being like, oh my gosh, like it's bright outside, and someone goes, really? It's bright outside? Or I'm like, hey, it's nighttime now and the sky is dark, but tomorrow morning it's also going to be light. And they go, who is this guy? Like, what is he talking about? That's kind of been my journey within the cryptocurrency space, and especially with like very basic things. If there's 900 made per day and that goes down to 450, and we're seeing these companies buying a 17x, they're mathematically going to absorb the entirety of the supply. I even said around springtime, I said the number's probably closer to like all metrics put together, around 25x. Was being created per day. Besides the ETFs, we know that governments and countries are also buying up Bitcoin. Individuals are buying up Bitcoin. If we do actually have hundreds of millions of people in the Bitcoin market, they're probably also buying up Bitcoin as well. The thing is, if you want to know, is that rich people basically found a very clever way, and they do this for all markets, to basically like suppress prices and to also kind of make it seem like Bitcoin wasn't really doing anything. No one's paying attention to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's price isn't going anywhere. It's very clever because it allows for them to kind of like control prices, to buy as much as they want. Like mathematically, you can tell, like if I buy X amount every single day, how much will the price go up? If X amount of people see that the price isn't going up by more than 1 or 2% over the course of a day, how many people are going to sell? And they see that there's like a constant number of retail people selling over and over. So they know that mathematically they can buy up those coins and just get us right back up to where we were before in price. And then no one does pay any actual attention. What we have now is the hyper, but beginning to go to the mega consolidation of the Bitcoin market, which I think is going to be one of the most fascinating things that we've ever seen in history. If you're not looking at the screen, it says on-chain metrics reveal low seller volume. Do you want to know why? Because all the trees have been shaken. All the weak leaves have fallen off. This is something that we went over in 2021, where I was telling you, I was like, watch out, because it's going to happen, because it's the same every single time. What takes place is that over the course of a multi-year period, and this is every single market, it happens in the housing market, it happens with stocks, it happens everywhere. If everyday normal people see that something isn't going up at all, they choose to tend not to invest or want to put their money into it, or they kind of they lose interest. Easiest way of saying it. So all the people over the last 2 years who wanted to sell, who got kicked out of the market, who just weren't paying attention, they're gone. I saw an article talking about that a lot of the movements within the market right now are happening because of people who have been in the market, but also because of whales. It's basically people who've been here for the last 2 years. I tip my hat to thee. And whales, who are the only people who are really buying right now. They're getting to the point. So listen, the way that it works is you, and this is once again for every single market. It seems counterintuitive, but it's the way that wealth is created and that wealth is held. Rich people don't want normal people in markets, and that is markets collectively, because normal people panic. Normal people aren't used to having a lot of money. They're not used to having investments. They're not used to having all these things. So money tends to be very fickle and almost scary for them. I'm telling you exactly the conversations that people have. I promise you this is exactly how it goes. The idea is, if you give a whole bunch of people, so imagine it this way. I was chatting, this is multiple conversations, but I was chatting with a friend about like the idea of inequality, like when it comes to like wealth and how like money is spread around and like who has $300 billion and who has $15 in their bank account. So I said, now imagine this for a second. Imagine that level was smoothed out. Imagine every single, or like the wealthiest people on the planet. This person has $200 billion. That money is evenly divvied out to X amount of people, where basically X person gets $500,000 per person until that rich person has no more. Everyone still with me? Over the course of a year, how many of those people who were given $500,000 would still have $500,000, would have more, or would have near nothing? The number's probably close to around 5% of those people who would still have something. And I mean, like in the form of anything, who would have bought property, who would have bought land, who would have bought stocks. The vast majority of these people would have spent all of that money. Even crazier to think about, a large portion of them would have also started buying items from companies that rich person owned, and that rich person's wealth would have skyrocketed all over again. And then by the end of the year, people would have been perplexed as to how this person got rich once again. It's a very weird thing to think about, but this is exactly how the world ends up working. This is why I'm always like, research, learn more, try to figure out like how money is made. It's not very difficult. It's literally just like buy an asset, hold on to it, buy something else that gives you passive income, complete the loop over and over and over, teach your kids about it, generational wealth. Like this is really exactly what it is. So when it comes to the idea of larger assets, when it comes to the idea of Bitcoin or housing or anything else, what you normally do as a very wealthy company, individual, country is you absorb all of it for yourself. You and your friends, you sit down at a long table menacingly, and you basically announce we can consolidate all of this wealth just to us. Because what ends up happening is so even in the matter of Bitcoin, I love the idea of Bitcoin being evenly spread out across the world. But if Bitcoin went up to $1 million, a lot of people would liquidate their holdings. And that would cause Bitcoin's price to completely collapse. You know how you get around this? Or rather, how rich people think they should get around it? Is you buy all of it. You own all of it with you and your friends to make sure that anyone buying has to pay your prices. And anyone selling will basically, like they're selling, like there is no pressure on the market from them actually doing so. Like this is all like coordinated. This is all like fixed in this way. It's the same thing with the housing market. If you think, so once again, understand that everything that I'm telling you is not exactly the way that I believe things should be, but in a world that is categorized and controlled by money, this is how the system actually works. Remember the 2007, 2008, 2009 crisis, the housing crisis? There was also a discussion from many of these hedge fund managers. You can find these videos on YouTube. The idea has to do with consolidation. Real estate was never really considered an asset class until the early 90s, if you can actually believe that. In the 70s and 80s, it was a way that people made money. People knew that it was a way to make money, but it wasn't until the 90s and early 2000s that like REITs and a whole bunch of like real estate investment trusts began to pop up because people realized that it was a gigantic asset class if you control everything. So the idea was around 2007, 2008, 2009, when the housing market crashed, it was in part due to a lot of people, in part. Once again, the blame is on the banks entirely. But it was in part due to people who had been taking out mortgages they basically couldn't afford or couldn't handle. So when the market ended up crashing, these people basically sold to recoup some kind of money. When the market fell low enough, these institutions in Wall Street basically said, buy it. Buy up as much as you possibly can, because over the course of the next 20 to 30 years, what we're going to do is own all of it. Because when you own all of it, you basically dictate how much rent is going to be. And you have a system where if no new property enters the market, but the demand remains the same and will continue to go up forever, the housing that we own will continue to also go up forever. So when I talk about these companies who are buying like 800 properties per month, that's it. Like that's literally exactly what it is. By the year 2040, if the corporate landlords own all the housing and there's no new housing hitting the market, people continue to have kids and people continue to turn 18 and people continue to turn 25 and 31 and they want to own a home. There's no new homes entering the market. The housing stock that's already there continues to rise in value while rents continue to rise in value because you have no one else to rent from except from these people. This is how the system actually is. And this is what we're witnessing with Bitcoin. And people, the average person, won't be privy to this until the next 10 to 15 to 20 years. This is why I when I tell you all these things and I tell you sometimes, I'm like, share the video, let other people know what's going on. It's because of this, because the average person can't conceptualize that all of this is going on. It seems almost like cartoonish in a certain way, like Mr. Scrooge kind of thing, like jumping into like a big pile of coins. If you are rich and you own everything, if you own all the land, if you own all the housing, if you own all the crypto, if you own all the stocks, if you own all the assets, and you have no intention of selling them, that's eternal generational wealth. That will literally go on until we aren't even here anymore. If Bitcoin is a brand new asset class, and we're talking about now, there was something, I don't think I have it here. Kathy Wood was just discussing that she thinks that in 2029, Bitcoin will be well over $1 million. There's a lot of like numbers that people are throwing out. Plan B has also said it. He said he thinks the lowest will be $250,000 in a couple of years. Like that'll be like the constant bouncing off point. Like it won't go any lower than that. But he's also speculating around $1 million within the next like 3.5, 4 years. And I constantly make sure to mention, because I want everyone to always remember this. If these are the numbers that they're giving for 3.5, 4 years from now, imagine the numbers in 10 years. Imagine the numbers in 15 years. Imagine exactly how big this is going to be and the consolidation of wealth that's taking place. I know I sound like a broken record, but it's because I've experienced in my life situations where I tell people that tomorrow the sun will shine, or that there will be clouds in the sky, or that you will use the bathroom tomorrow. And people go, none of that makes any sense. And I re-encounter these people 10 years later and they're like, oh my gosh, you were right. I did use the bathroom. That's the craziest. You know what's even crazier is you kept on saying that morning, is that how you pronounce it? Morning was going to be there tomorrow. And it kept on being, and I sit there and I'm like, did you think I was lying to you? I've had conversations with people before who I know, and I said, why do you think I told you that? Do you think I liked hearing myself say those words? Do you think I was trying to like lie to you to make up something fantabulous and weird and just, disappear, poof of smoke and go, I like lying to people? No, I'm telling you because there's a reason for it. Whatever. I was going to ask if you had seen the movie. It's not even really important. It's relevant, but not really that important. We've seen last thought on this topic. I remember I like dystopian movies. I don't know why. Anything with like robots, futuristic, like that kind of thing. I really like them. I find them very cool. And there's so many movies that will show Earth in like the year 2080 or the year 2121, like that kind of thing. And they'll show this world where like rich people own everything. Like not some things, like they literally own every single asset and everyone else lives in like absolute squalor. And it's like we can see these things and we know that it's happening, and people, I know that it's a movie. Like I get that maybe because it's a movie, it's like fantasy based, but these movies are based off of like projections of what's going to happen in the future. It's kind of like Black Mirror. Like some people were watching. Do you remember this must have happened to other people? The point of the TV show Black Mirror on Netflix, I think it came out, was it 2015, 2016? The creator of it made it basically based off of technology that we had back then in 2015. He kind of like elaborated and like, stretched it out and went forward and said, by the year 2050, this is what things will be like if we have this technology. Around 9 years later, 9 years later, I have people like watching it now and they're like, isn't that crazy? He predicted the future. And I'm like, it's not predicting the future. It's looking at where things are right now. There's a chart. I'll try and find it because it's not obscure, but it's not everywhere. There's 3 charts that I saw. It's a chart based off of what the average everyday person thinks wealth distribution looks like. It's what we're told that it looks like. And then third one is what it actually looks like. So when they were asking the everyday average person, like what they thought, wealth distribution, there we go, money distribution looked like, it was on a metric, obviously, from like the poorest to like the very rich. And the average person believes or thinks that richness, like the wealthiest people, have roughly around 8 times what someone in the middle class has. So the idea would be that someone who's rich or wealthy is probably making around if middle class is making 100K, then therefore the wealthiest people are making around 800,000 per year. Then they said, here's what we're actually told it is. And then they showed other numbers. And like the graph was like really moving like in different ways and stretching out a lot further. And then they showed how much like the actual like bottom 50% is actually making comparative to like the other number. And that number was also completely askewed because the average person assumes that people like in the bottom lowest 50% are making around like $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 per year. And that the average like wealthy person is maybe making around like $5 million per year. When they showed what the actual chart was because of wealth consolidation and asset buying by the richest people, I just told you there was another article and there was a video as well, where this guy, I think it's from Harvard, but there was also an article as well where they were discussing that the average American doesn't really understand how much wealth rich people control and will always control, and this will never be relinquished. They were saying the average person would probably get angry if they realized exactly how askewed things were. Back to the chart. On the chart, they showed that the bottom, I think 60 or 70%, like, so that's like, like there's the 50, 60% have so little money that they're about 2 times below the actual poverty line. The line moved over to what people like think is the middle class, and it showed what the actual numbers are. The middle class is almost on par with the lowest 50, 60%. I'm going to repeat that one more time. The middle class in the United States is nearly on par with the people who are at the lowest 50 to 60% on the actual ladder. And they were explaining that the misconception is you live in a big house, you have big cars, you go on these big vacations. But the problem is that these people are 200, 300, 400, 500,000 in debt. Every vacation that they take, it's on a card. It's based off of debt in some sort of way. They continue to buy more, and they use all these other platforms that have like buy now, pay later in such excess to continue to show other people that they have it, knowing that they don't, that it's literally like driving. It's the exact same thing that I was saying before when it comes to like the idea of, for those of you who also didn't get it before, it's, what was it? We are currently at worse levels of inequality than the Victorian era. That is to say, Queen Victoria. The idea is someone average, normal, walking down the street, working in a factory would never come into contact with someone who's noble or who's rich, because they not only do they live on opposite parts of the town, like there was like a literal divide where you could not ever get into their presence. It's kind of like during the Versailles era, if you will, where like poor people used to actually pay to watch the king eat. That's how poor people were. The idea was that it's a privilege to be able to have any scraps of money, to be able to sit there and watch the king gorge himself on food. Think of how insane that is. Victorian era, we've completely outpaced it. And the average person can't understand why. So like I told you before, what I was going over, they were saying that the idea is that you and another person walk into a cafe. You hold the door for them. They don't say thank you, and you know, whatever. You continue on your way. Rude person. You both stand in line. You order the exact same Kappa Macchiato latte, whatever it's going to be. You both sit down at opposite tables, but you both have the same computer. At some point, you happen just to leave at the exact same time. They don't hold the door for you once again. You know they're a very rude person. You look over. They get into the exact same car as you. It's this idea that everything's kind of on the exact same level because you've been taught to get yourself into debt to make it look like that you're on the exact same level as other people. What you don't realize is that that person has zero debt. They're worth around $114 million, but they live, and I air quote here, a relatively simple life comparative to other people. You, however, are $300,000 in debt. You've leased your car, you've leased this, you did so and so and so, you're about to go to a Dollar Tree or somewhere like that. It's this kind of idea. On the surface, you can't tell anything, but it's the bank accounts that tell a completely different story. So when it came to the chart, when it showed how much money the average rich person owned, it was around a 20, 30, or 40x. Like there were multiple bars going up. 20, 30, 40x to someone in the middle class. Not the lowest 50%. The chart that showed for the wealthiest people, it shot up so high, they actually had to cut the actual bar and replace it further to the right to show it continuously going up. It got cut again and then kept going up once again. This is the illusion that we have, is that everyone in some sort of way is basically around the exact same level. You can buy all the things, all the clothes that rich people wear. You can walk into a Dior and you can walk out with something. You can walk into a Louis Vuitton and you can buy a whole bunch of luggage if you want to. But it's this misconception that you're on the exact same level at them. And it has to do with this idea of wealth building, wealth creation, wealth consolidation over the course of multiple generations. So when I tell you that things are getting worse and people tell me that I'm over exaggerating, this lets me know that people, it has nothing to do with not even doing your own research. You want to be blissfully unaware of exactly the way that the system actually is. When I scream at the top of my lungs, and I'm blue in the face in multiple of these videos, and I tell you that Bitcoin is a brand new asset class, that the rich people are also making sure that they control, this will also send those charts askewed once again, because a number of things will happen. The people at the lowest rang don't understand how to buy an asset and hold on to it. We see this every single market cycle. The only people who keep selling are those who are retail. People in the middle class, they tend to, this is from my experience, from people who I've known and who I've met, there's no real rush or desire to try and accumulate whatever asset it might be, in this instance, crypto, because they feel that their lives are already good enough. You think that because you're in debt, you see the same person getting into the same car, drinking the same drink, having the same laptop, that there's no real reason to try and make money, to try and establish a good level of wealth in the future, because you know that the $100 you put into the crypto market 8 months ago will go up. I still have something. And then you have the people all the way to the right at the highest peak of the mountain who see this new asset class and they go, I need my company to buy 250,000 of that right now. That's the difference. That's literally the entire difference. So the wealth will continue rising up to the top until people actually try to gain control over their finances. That's why I get really excited when we hear that a bunch of new people keep getting into Bitcoin and are opening up new wallets and stuff like that, because I'm like, it gives me like a hint of hope that people in the future will like hold on to these things and begin to accumulate assets. And I know it's like a pipe dream. It's very, very sad. Like, think about it. Like, how many of your friends got into crypto years ago? They don't mention it now. They will mention it as FOMO kicks in and they get back into the market. But then when the market prices, if they end up going back down, these people will sell. You are going to, listen to my words, you are going to have friends who are going to be so envious of you in the future because they think that you've done something magical. They will think that you have cheated the system almost in some way when all you did was keep your head down. I'm trying to tell you right now, over the course of the last 10 years, I've lost a lot of friends. We've gone over that multiple times. And I think I tell you that to reassure you that it does happen and that it will probably happen to you as well. It's nice and rosy to think that things will continue to be amazing with you and current people who you know right now. There's going to be a rift. There's going to be a shift. A lot of people will think that you're bragging when you tell them about the things that you are doing that are normal in your life. People will become envious of you when they see you in 2025 and you just bought a house and you announce, I think I'm going to go to Italy and maybe buy one of those $1 houses as well. The anger will rise because these people refuse, once again, not all people. It's this idea, I don't have to do anything. Why would I have to invest? What's the point of me thinking about putting money away for the future? This will accelerate. I think the next 10 to 15 years are probably, and I mean this, are going to be some of the most difficult years economically for a huge portion of the planet. When Bitcoin goes to $1 million, the odds of there being another new asset class popping up are basically slim to none. If all the corporations are going to own all the housing by 2040, all the land, which is also a huge thing that's happening right now, like silently, even when it comes to like water rights and air rights, like we've gone over before, when all the crypto and all the Bitcoin is owned, is happening with other coins as well. But also people, I mean, if people aren't paying attention to Bitcoin, they're not paying attention to a lot of the altcoins, which we've been going over as well. Remember how a lot of times we've had news that like there's whales, I mean like daily, buying huge amounts of Ether, huge amounts of XRP, huge amounts of Cardano. It doesn't make the news and it's not as fascinating because it's not Bitcoin. But also for the Bitcoin news, people also don't pay attention. So in the future, when there's nothing left, and people realize, this is why I mentioned before, I think, especially in the comment section, but also in real life, it's okay to let people know that you own crypto if they're curious and stuff like that, but don't ever tell people how much you have. Don't ever. Do not. Like, actually do not, because people will count your money. I learned that when I was younger. People will count your money very fast. When I first started buying my first investment properties, they were little studios. I found a market. I was able to buy these things $28,000, $33,000. I was very, very lucky to find the area that I found. Some of these places went up to like $128,000, like per property, what have you. And I remember sometime I was chatting with someone and they said, you're making out like a bandit. And I said, what? And they were like, yeah, that place you bought a couple of years ago, it's worth almost like $150K now. And I remember it didn't shock me. It almost terrified me. Because that person had that in the back of their head all that time. I mean, every time that I saw them, they were thinking about property prices. They also had the chance to buy similar things years ago, but they didn't. So when the price got too high for them, that's when it became an issue. And I kept on seeing them. And every time I saw them, I just saw the news. The property market went up again. You are lucky, man. So I stopped telling them. I stopped telling everyone stuff. Because you will get a property next year. And you will probably tell a friend, I was lucky enough to do so. And then 10 to 15 years, when that property is worth $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 more, that person's going to go, man, you are lucky. I wish I had, done that when you did it. Some people get all the luck. Last story. I have one of my close friends. He got into crypto 2016, 2017, I basically like held his arm behind his back and I was like, if you don't get into this thing right now, like we're going to have a problem. He got into the market. Did pretty well for himself. He wasn't dumping in huge amounts of money into the market. It was a couple hundred here over the course of multiple years. And at some point, his portfolio had gone over like just above six figures. He went back home and he was chatting like with a couple of friends about like not his newfound wealth, but like, you know, he didn't grow up with money either. So it was this kind of thing where he's talking to people like, you know, can you imagine like this happened? I can't believe it. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? That kind of thing. And he said one of his old close friends, one of his childhood friends, was like, whoa, that's really cool. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. You know what would be crazy? Like, you know, you should totally loan me like $1,000, man. That'd be crazy. They both laughed, got up, walked around, got something to drink. He said the friend brought it up again. You know, rent is really high. It'd be great if you passed 1,000 my way. He was like, later on that evening, he was like, dude, you know, it'd be really cool if you could, you know, pass 1,000 my way because like you have so much money now. So my friend was telling me this story and I was like, why'd you tell him that you had money? He's like, because he's my old friend. So I had to have the same exact conversation with him that I'm having with all of you right now. And he said he recently like saw that friend again and the person was like 5,000 would really change my life. Like I, you know, like rent is really high and so and so and so. And I was like, that's how it begins. They focus on the one thing that you told them and they begin to count. Where did he get that money from? He got it from crypto. I saw that crypto went up by 10, 15%. I know he can spare 5,000. It's kind of like when people win the lotto, all these people like rush to them. It's no one's business. It's no one's except for you, your partner. And I dare even say the word family in almost a whispered tone. It's your business. Like, as I always say, you would not walk down the street and tell someone, you know how much money I have in my bank account? Woo, boy, howdy. You have no, like you wouldn't. It's not a thing. I think people, forgive my French here. Sometimes people who are new to money, it's such like a big thing that like weighs on their mind that they want to tell other people about it. They want to, you know, it's not even bragging. They want to share the good news. But understand that other people don't have good news coming their way. They have a lot of bills. They're not doing too well economically. And they will remember these numbers. So keep your business to yourself. Yeah. Of course, demand is outpacing supply. Bitcoin is the rarest and most finite asset that we have on the planet. Rich people figured this out a while ago. They're going to continue buying massive amounts of Bitcoin until there's none left for everyday normal people. At that point, as we've been going over before, once Bitcoin is worth around $250,000, Bitcoin will be the it asset to own. Yeah. Kind of got off topic, but I think it's all relevant. We need to have these conversations every now and again anyway. Just because of the way that the world is, prepare yourself. That is not an over-exaggeration. Things are going to continue to get rough. The expectations next year is that every country is going to turn back on the money printer. It is going to cause inflation to rise. It is going to cause asset prices to rise. You have to make sure that you take advantage of it because there are billions of people who will not be able to do so. I do hope that you've all enjoyed. I do hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.